When I inherited my grandparents' $1.20 M estate, I quietly locked it in a trust sensing trouble. Last week, my sister and mom stormed the property, smirking, "We transferred the house to my name, vacate by Friday." I grinned. You think I'd make it that easy? 2 days later, they rolled up with a U-Haul and armed guards and froze when they saw the county official on the porch, holding my trust's ironclad documents. The phone buzzed on my nightstand, a sharp, insistent vibration that sliced through the silence of my Seattle loft at 2:17 a.m. I groaned, rubbing sleep from my eyes, the glow of the screen casting shadows across the exposed brick walls. Unknown number. Probably a scam, one of those robocalls, peddling car warranties or fake IRS threats. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something, call it gut instinct, or just plain irritation, made me swipe to answer. "Dean Caldwell?" The voice was low, distorted, like it was filtered through one of those cheap Halloween masks. "They're coming for your house. Trust no one." I sat up, heart kicking against my ribs. "Who is this? What the hell are you talking about?" The line went dead. I stared at the phone, the call log confirming it wasn't a dream. Unknown number, 13 seconds. I tried calling back, but it just rang into oblivion. A prank, I told myself. Some punk kid with too much time and a burner phone. But as I lay back on the pillow, the words looped in my head. "They're coming for your house." My house. The one I didn't even live in yet. The one that changed everything. I'm Ethan Caldwell, 35, owner of Rainier Craft Brewing, a small batch brewery in Seattle's Fremont district that's been my blood, sweat, and tears for the last decade. I'm not the guy who gets cryptic calls in the middle of the night. I'm the guy who balances payroll, schmoozes distributors, and pulls 16-hour days to keep the taps flowing. But 2 years ago, when my grandfather passed, followed a year later by my grandmother, my world tilted. They left me everything. $1,200,000, 0 cents in savings stocks and a 1,920 craftsman home in Willow Creek, a gentrified suburb where every other house is a flipped McMansion or a Tech Bros Airbnb. That house, with its cedar beams, stained glass windows, and a yard that smells like pine after a rain, isn't just a property. It's a legacy, a piece of my grandparents' soul, and now, apparently, a target. I wasn't surprised they chose me. For years, I was the one who showed up. I drove them to chemo, fixed their leaky pipes, sat with them through endless reruns of Jeopardy, while the rest of the family was too busy chasing their own dramas. My sister, Rachel Harper, 31, was the opposite. She's the kind of influencer who'd sell her own kidney for a sponsored post. Flashy, manipulative, with a rap sheet of scams, crowdfunding for a charity that never existed, selling a family heirloom grandma's pearl necklace on eBay like it was thrift store junk. Mom, Deanne Harper, always had her back, calling Rachel misunderstood, a dreamer who just needed time to find her way. Me? I was the responsible one, the guy who paid his dues, the one they leaned on when Rachel's latest sure thing blew up in her face. I was done being their doormat. When the will was read naming me the sole heir, Mom's face twisted like she'd bitten into a lemon. "This is a mistake," she hissed, her voice low but venomous. "You stole their legacy, Ethan." Rachel just smirked like she was already plotting her next move. I saw the storm coming, and I wasn't about to get caught in the rain without an umbrella. The Willow Creek house is a gem, the kind of place realtors drool over. Soaring ceilings, original hardwood floors, ivy climbing the brick like it's posing for a magazine spread. The neighborhood's exploded in value. Half the block's been gutted for condos or overpriced bungalows. My grandparents never sold, even when developers came knocking with blank checks. Now, it was mine, and I wasn't letting it go. I didn't move in right away. My loft was closer to the brewery, and honestly, I wasn't ready to leave the city's pulse. But I wasn't stupid. I met with Laura Bennett, a high-profile estate attorney with a reputation for being sharper than a switchblade. She helped me set up an irrevocable trust, naming myself trustee, locking down the house, savings, and my brewery investments. I even moved the utilities, electric, water, gas, under a shell company tied to the trust. It cost me a chunk of change in fees, but I knew my family. Rachel and Mom were sharks, and blood was in the water. For months, it was quiet. Too quiet. Rachel texted now and then, dropping hints about swinging by the house, asking if it had a hot tub. It doesn't. Mom played the guilt card, sighing about how unfair it was that I got everything, how Rachel deserved a piece of the pie. I nodded, kept my mouth shut, and changed the subject. I wasn't falling for their good cop, bad cop routine. But Rachel's Instagram posts started getting weird. Cryptic captions like, "Big moves, stay tuned," or "Family secrets don't stay buried." I knew she was cooking something. And it wasn't dinner. Then, 3 weeks ago, shit hit the fan. I got to the brewery at 6 a.m., same as always, ready to check the fermentation tanks. The security system was down, cameras offline, alarms disabled. On the back wall, spray painted in neon red, "Give up the house." My stomach dropped. This wasn't a random tagger. This was personal. I called the cops, filed a report, but they shrugged it off as vandalism. "Kids, probably," the officer said, barely looking up from his notepad. I wasn't buying it. That midnight call wasn't a prank anymore. I doubled down on security. At the brewery, I installed new cameras and a cloud-based system that texted me if a mouse so much as sneezed. At Willow Creek, I went full Fort Knox. Motion sensors, floodlights, even a panic room in the basement, because if someone was bold enough to hack my business, they wouldn't stop there. I started carrying a pocket knife, not because I'm Rambo, but because Seattle's not all coffee shops and flannel. You don't mess around when someone's gunning for you. Last Tuesday, the rain was coming down in sheets, turning Willow Creek streets into rivers. I was at the house, checking the new locks, when headlights cut through the dusk. A black SUV pulled into the driveway, and out stepped Rachel, all designer boots and a smirk that could curdle milk. Mom followed, clutching a manila folder like it was the nuclear codes. "Hey, big bro," Rachel said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "We've got news." I leaned against the porch railing, arms crossed. "Yeah? What's that?" Mom stepped forward, her face tight. "We talked to a lawyer. The will's invalid. Grandpa didn't update it after Grandma passed, so the house should have gone to both of you. We fixed it." "Fixed it?" I raised an eyebrow, keeping my tone light, like I was humoring a toddler. Rachel pulled a folded paper from her purse and waved it like a victory flag. "Title's in my name now. Done deal. You've got till Friday to clear out, but no hard feelings, right? We'll let you grab your stuff." I stared at them, rain dripping off the porch roof, my pulse steady but my mind racing. They really thought I was that dumb that I'd just hand over the keys to a $1,200,000 0 cents estate because they waved a piece of paper in my face? I almost laughed, but instead I gave them a slow, tight smile, the kind that makes people nervous. "You sure about that, Rach? 'Cause I'm not going anywhere." Rachel laughed, sharp and mean. "It's happening, Ethan. You've been living in La La Land too long." Mom softened her tone, playing good cop. "We're not trying to screw you over, honey. Rachel's got plans for the house. Maybe flip it, split the profits. You've got your brewery, your loft. This is just practical." It didn't bite. "Practical, huh? Let's see that paper." Rachel hesitated, then shoved it at me. I scanned it. Fancy letterhead, some lawyer's name I'd never heard of. Words like clerical error and rightful heir. Looked legit at a glance, but I knew better. I'd spent months with Laura making sure every I was dotted, every T crossed. This was a con, and not even a good one. "Nice try," I said, handing it back, "but you're going to have to do better than that." Unlike Rachel's smirk faltered, Mom's eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" she snapped. I just shrugged. "You'll see." That night, I called Laura. She was already on it, pulling records, ready to bury their scam in legal concrete. But then, at 3 a.m., my phone lit up again. Another X notification. Rachel had posted a thread, 280 characters of pure venom. "My brother's hoarding our family's estate, a house our grandparents wanted us all to share. He's turned his back on us. Justice for Harper." The replies were a shitstorm, some calling me a greedy bastard, others demanding I do the right thing. My brewery's Yelp page tanked overnight, 1-star reviews from accounts I'd never heard of, all parroting Rachel's sob story. By morning, justice for Harper was trending in Seattle. I wanted to fire back, to post my own thread and blow their lies to hell. But Laura was clear. Don't engage, let them dig their own grave. So I bit my tongue, poured my anger into a batch of IPA, and waited. I knew Rachel wouldn't stop at social media. She was too desperate, too deep in whatever hole she dug herself into. 2 days later, I was back at Willow Creek, checking the security feeds, when I heard engines. A U-Haul roared into the driveway, followed by a blacked-out van. Rachel hopped out, all business, her hair pulled back like she was ready for war. Behind her, 3 guys in tactical gear, private security, the kind you hire when you're more mobster than influencer. Mom was there too, directing them like she was staging a HGTV reveal. "Time's up, Ethan," Rachel called, her voice carrying over the crunch of gravel. "We're moving in." I stepped onto the porch, hands in my pockets, my pocket knife a reassuring weight. "You really want to play this game?" One of the guards, a big guy with a buzz cut and a scar across his cheek, strode forward, too close. "Step aside, pal. We don't want trouble." "Funny," I said, holding my ground. "You're the ones bringing it." He shoved me, hard, his palm slamming into my chest. Pain flared in my ribs, and I stumbled back, catching myself on the railing. My hand twitched toward my knife, but I stopped. Not yet. The guard leaned in, his breath hot. "Don't make me do something you'll regret." I locked eyes with him, my voice low. "Touch me again, and you'll be the one regretting it." Rachel laughed, but it was nervous now. "Chill, Ethan. Just grab your shit and go." Before I could answer, another car pulled up, a county-issued sedan. Out stepped Tom Reynolds, a King County property records official, his navy suit crisp despite the drizzle. He carried a thick folder with my trust's name on it, and his badge gleamed under the porch light. Rachel froze. Mom's face went pale. "Evening," Tom said, his tone calm but firm like a cop about to read you your rights. "Ethan Caldwell?" "That's me," I said, stepping forward. Tom glanced at Rachel, then the guards. "And you must be?" "Rachel Harper. I'm here about the Willow Creek property." Rachel's confidence cracked. "What's this about?" Tom opened his folder, pulling out a stack of documents. "This property's been in an irrevocable trust since last April, under Ethan Caldwell's management. Your so-called title transfer? It's fraudulent. Forged notary, illegal registry, the works. You're looking at felony charges." Rachel's mouth opened, then closed, like a fish out of water. The guards shifted, suddenly less sure of their paycheck. Mom stammered, "There's been a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding." I cut in, my voice ice. "You tried to steal my house, Rachel. The one thing Grandma and Grandpa trusted me to protect. You really thought I'd just roll over?" Tom nodded. "I've filed a fraud report. Normally, we'd issue a warning, but showing up with armed muscle and a moving truck? That's straight to enforcement. One step on this property without Ethan's permission, and it's trespassing. Keep pushing, and it's jail." The big guard muttered something and backed off, signaling the others to stand down. Rachel's face was a mask of fury, but she said nothing. Mom looked like she wanted to cry, but I wasn't buying the waterworks. They'd played their hand, and they'd lost. "Get out," I said, my voice steady. "And don't come back." Rachel shot me a look that could have melted steel, then stormed to the van. Mom followed, her folder of fake papers crumpled in her hand. The U-Haul's engine roared and they peeled out, taillights vanishing into the rain. Tom handed me a copy of the fraud report. "Call if they try anything else," he said, then left. I stood on the porch, the rain soaking my jacket, my ribs throbbing from the shove. The house was still mine, but I knew this was just round one. Rachel's ex-post had split the family. Half of them texting me support, the other half buying her victim act. My brewery was bleeding customers, and that midnight call still haunted me. Who warned me? And what else did Rachel have up her sleeve? I locked the door, the craftsman's quiet wrapping around me like a shield. But as I climbed the stairs, a floorboard creaked in the attic. I froze, my hand on my knife. The house was empty, or it was supposed to be. The creak from the attic stopped my heart. Rain battered the craftsman's roof, a steady drumbeat that couldn't drown out the sound of that floorboard shifting under weight. I stood frozen on the staircase, my hand gripping the pocket knife, its blade still folded but ready. The Willow Creek house was supposed to be empty, locked tight, secured with every gadget money could buy. But someone was up there, and it wasn't a ghost. I took a slow breath, the air thick with the scent of cedar and old books, and forced my legs to move. One step, then another, toward the attic door. I'm Ethan Caldwell, and I don't scare easy. Running a brewery in Seattle's cutthroat craft beer scene teaches you to handle pressure. Drunk patrons, broken kegs, tax audits, you name it. But this was different. This was my grandparents' house, the $1,200,000 0 cents legacy they entrusted to me. Now a battleground where my sister Rachel and my mother Diane were playing dirty. 2 hours ago, they'd rolled up with a U-Haul and armed goons, waving a forged title like it was a winning lottery ticket. I'd sent them packing with the help of Tom Reynolds from the county, but Rachel's viral X post was torching my reputation in that midnight call, "They're coming for your house, trust no one," was no longer a prank. And now, this, an intruder in my attic. Started to advance on the door, its brass knob cold under my palm. The security system hadn't tripped, which meant whoever was up there knew how to dodge motion sensors. I flipped open my knife, the blade glinting in the dim hallway light, and eased the door open. The hinges groaned, and I winced, expecting a shadow to lunge at me. Nothing, just darkness and the faint smell of dust. I flicked on my phone's flashlight, sweeping the beam across exposed beams and cardboard boxes stacked like tombstones. A single bulb hung from the ceiling, its pull chain swaying slightly as if someone had brushed past it. "Who's there?" I called, my voice sharper than I meant. No answer, but a faint scuff came from the far corner, behind a pile of my grandparents' old trunks. My pulse hammered, but I wasn't backing down. This was my house. I stepped forward, the floorboards creaking under my boots, and rounded the trunks. Empty. Just a ratty quilt and a cracked mirror propped against the wall. But the window was cracked open, rain slipping through, pooling on the sill. Someone had been here, and they'd left in a hurry. I slammed the window shut, my mind racing. Was this Rachel's doing? Another one of her stunts to scare me into giving up the house? Or was it tied to that anonymous call, someone who knew more than they should? I scanned the attic again, my flashlight catching on a small, locked safe tucked under the eaves. I'd never noticed it before, but I remembered my grandparents' private letters mentioning a safe in the attic with something vital inside. I knelt, running my fingers over the rusted lock. No key, no combination. Whatever was in there, it was another piece of this puzzle, and I wasn't leaving it for Rachel to find. Downstairs, I triple-checked the locks and reset the security system, my ribs still aching from the guard's shove earlier. My phone buzzed. A text from Laura Bennett, my attorney. "County's filing fraud charges against Rachel. Stay sharp, they'll retaliate." I typed back, "Someone was in the attic. Window open. Ideas?" Her reply was instant. "Get a PI, now. I know someone." By morning, I'd hired Sarah Klein, a private investigator with a rep for digging up dirt no one else could find. If Rachel was pulling strings, Sarah would cut them. The next day, the fallout from Rachel's ex-post hit like a freight train. I pulled into Rainier Craft Brewing at dawn, ready to tweak a new stout recipe, only to find a dozen protesters outside, waving signs, greedy air, and "Justice for Harper." Rachel's followers, whipped into a frenzy by her sob story, were boycotting my brewery. Customers turned away, muttering about family drama. My manager Jake met me at the door, his face grim. "We lost $4,000 0 cents in sales yesterday, Ethan. Social media's killing us." I clenched my jaw, fighting the urge to storm out and tear down their signs. "Let them protest," I said. "They'll burn out. Keep the taps open." But inside I was seething. Rachel wasn't just after the house. She was torching my livelihood, the brewery I'd built from a garage operation to a Seattle staple. Her ex-posts were relentless, painting me as a selfish bastard who'd conned our grandparents out of their estate. The truth? I was the one who'd cared for them, while she was too busy snapping selfies to show up. But Truth doesn't go viral. Lies do. Sarah called that afternoon, her voice all business. Rachel's in deep with a loan shark, Ethan. Owes $50,000, 0 cents to a guy named Victor Kravik. Runs a chop shop in Tacoma. She's been dodging payments, and he's not the patient type. That's why she's so desperate for the house. Needs the cash to save her skin. I leaned against a fermentation tank, the brewery's Hume grounding me. Explains the goons. You think Kravik sent someone to my attic? Maybe, Sarah said. Or Rachel's playing both sides, using his muscle to scare you. I'm digging into her finances. Give me 48 hours. Make it 24, I said, and find out who bribed a county clerk to file that fake title. Laura says it's a lead. Sarah whistled. County corruption? This just got juicy. I'm on it. That night, I parked my truck outside my loft and noticed the tires slashed, all four, the rubber sagging like deflated balloons. Tucked under the wiper was a note, scrawled in black marker. Back off, or you're next. My blood ran cold. This wasn't Rachel's style. She was all flash, not knives in the dark. Kravik, maybe, or someone else, someone tied to that midnight call. I snapped a photo of the note, called Sarah, and hired a bodyguard, a former Marine named Marcus, who didn't talk much but looked like he could bench press a Buick. I wasn't taking chances. The next morning, I opened the Seattle Times to a gut punch. A front-page article, brewery owner accused of stealing family fortune, painted me as a scheming heir who'd manipulated my grandparents into cutting Mom and Rachel out of the will. Diane had leaked texts, emails, even a photo of me with Grandpa captioned, Ethan's influence was undeniable. The piece quoted family sources claiming I'd isolated them in their final years. Lies, every word, but the damage was done. My phone lit up with texts from friends, employees, even my barista. Is this true? I wanted to scream, to sue the paper for libel, but Laura was already on it, drafting a counter lawsuit for defamation and fraud. At the brewery, I found Jake scrubbing graffiti off the front window. Thief. The protesters were back, louder now, chanting Rachel's hashtag. My biggest investor, Greg Hensley, called, his voice tight. Ethan, this drama's tanking your brand. Settle with your sister or I'm pulling my funding. I can't afford to back a PR nightmare. I gripped the phone, my knuckles white. Greg, they're lying. I've got proof, forged documents, a loan shark, a corrupt clerk. Give me a week. A week? He snapped. Then I'm out. I hung up, my chest tight. The brewery was my life, and Rachel was burning it down, tweet by tweet. But I wasn't folding. I called Sarah. Anything on that clerk? Bingo, she said. Rachel paid off a guy named Carl Dutton, works in the county records office. Wired him $5,000, 0 cents, to file the fake title. Problem is, Dutton's tied to a bigger ring. Crooked officials skimming property records for cash. I've got bank records, but we need more to nail her. Do it, I said, and watch your back. Someone's watching mine. That evening, I drove to Willow Creek, Marcus in the passenger seat, his eyes scanning the street. The house loomed in the dusk, its windows dark, the floodlights I'd installed casting stark shadows. A neighbor had texted earlier. Saw someone lurking by your fence last night. Be careful. Another curiosity, another threat. I parked, my hand on my knife, and stepped onto the porch. That's when I heard it. A low rumble, tires screeching. A black sedan barreled down the street, no plates, windows tinted. I dove behind a pillar as it swerved, missing me by inches, then roared off. Marcus pulled his gun, but the car was gone. Kravik's guys, he growled, holstering his weapon. Or someone Rachel hired. You okay? I nodded, my heart pounding. Yeah. But they're escalating. Inside, I checked the security feeds. Nothing, again. Whoever was targeting me knew how to ghost my system. I climbed to the attic, the safe still locked, taunting me. What was in there? A will? Cash? Something Rachel wanted bad enough to risk felony charges? I needed answers, but first I needed to fight back. The next day, my cousin Liam called, his voice low. Ethan, it's bad. Aunt Diane's telling everyone you forced Grandpa to change the will. Says you controlled his meds, locked them away from her. Half the family believes her. I gripped the phone, fury boiling. She's lying, Liam. You know that. I do, he said. But she's got Aunt Clara and Uncle Rob on her side. They're calling you a traitor. I've got texts, voicemails. Want me to send them? Yes, I said. And Liam? Thanks. His evidence was gold. Diane's voicemails, venomous and unhinged, accusing me of stealing her birthright. I compiled a dossier. Rachel's forged title, her $50,000 0 cents debt to Kravik. Diane's lawsuit demanding $300,000, 0 cents and half the house. Liam's texts, and Sarah's bank records on the bribed clerk. I emailed it to 30 relatives, my message short. Here's the truth, documents, not stories. Believe what you want, but this is the last I'm saying. The response was instant. Aunt Clara called, sobbing, Ethan, I didn't know. Diane said you manipulated them. I'm so sorry. Others followed, cousins, uncles, even my old high school coach, all horrified by Rachel and Diane's lies. But Diane's loyalists, her sisters and a few cousins, doubled down, accusing me of faking the dossier, calling me a snake in the grass. The family split clean in two. Team Ethan, who saw through the scam, and Team Rachel/Diane, clinging to their narrative of victimhood. Seattle's community was no better. Half the city hailed me as a guy standing up to greed. The other half branded me a heartless heir. Justice for Harper still trended, and my brewery sales plummeted another $10,000 0 cents. Then the worst blow. I arrived at the brewery at 5 a.m. to find the front door smashed, glass glittering on the sidewalk. Inside, the tanks were wrecked, valves snapped, wort pooling on the floor. Scrawled across the bar in red paint, thief. The damage was $80,000 0 cents, maybe more. Jake was already there, on the phone with the cops, his face ashen. Ethan, this is war. I nodded, my hands shaking. War it was. I called Sarah. Kravik? Likely, she said, or Rachel's desperate enough to hire her own muscle. I've got a lead on Kravik's crew. Give me till tomorrow. The cops came, took photos, but I knew they wouldn't find much. I called Laura, who filed an insurance claim, and added the vandalism to our counter lawsuit. Then I made a move I'd been holding back. Rachel worked for a luxury real estate firm, the kind that plastered her face on billboards, touting integrity and trust. I sent an anonymous tip to their ethics board, attaching the dossier, Rachel's forged title, the bribed clerk, her loan shark debt. By noon, her profile was scrubbed from their website. Fired, just like that. I didn't cheer, I didn't gloat, but I felt a spark of justice. That afternoon, Laura called with bad news. The county's freezing your trust assets pending the fraud investigation. They're worried about irregularities in the title history thanks to Rachel's stunt. It's temporary, but it could tie up your cash for months. I sank into a chair, the brewery's hum fading to a dull roar. Months? Laura, I've got payroll, loans, repairs. This'll bankrupt me. I'm fighting it, she said, but you need to brace for impact. I hung up, my world tilting. The house, the brewery, my future, everything was slipping through my fingers. Rachel's charges were coming, wire fraud, forgery, maybe more, but it felt hollow. She'd already done damage no courtroom could undo. That night, I drove to Willow Creek, Marcus at my side, the guard dog I'd adopted, a German shepherd named Rusty, pacing the yard. The floodlights blazed, but the house felt alive with secrets. The attic safe. The midnight caller. The note in the trust, found in Laura's files. Beware of family shadows. What did my grandparents know, and why hadn't Diane, their supposed favorite, gotten a dime? I sat in the den, the same leather armchair where Grandpa used to read his paper, and let the quiet settle. Rachel and Diane had lost, fired, sued, exposed. The family was fractured, the city divided, but I was still standing. I whispered to the empty room. I kept it safe, just like I promised. The words felt true but heavy. I wasn't the same Ethan, who'd answered that midnight call. I was harder, sharper, free. As I locked up, my phone buzzed. A text, unknown number. Check the safe. They're not done. I stared at the screen, Rusty growling at the darkness beyond the floodlights. The battle for Willow Creek wasn't over, but neither was I.